And now, WWAX Productions proudly presents The Spotlight with Justin Hollywood. Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to an all-new episode of The Spotlight with Justin Hollywood. I'm your host, Justin Hollywood, and we're back after over a 6-month absence due to the conclusion of the first season, but we're back with all new guests and all new episodes. And today I'm here with Jonathan Feltner, best known as the voice of Georgia wrestling pretty much around here. Jonathan, welcome to the show.
Howdy. What's up?
Nothing much. How you feeling today?
Feel pretty good, a little tired, but it's just that's what adulting will do to you.
Yeah, I hear that.
Yeah.
So before we get started, Jonathan, I'm going to ask you, if you don't mind, tell me a little bit about yourself and where do you come from?
Well, originally from Kentucky. Moved down here after high school to go to college. Ended up living here, and now I've got a wife and a new son, so that's just pretty much it.
Cool.
Pretty cut and dry.
Nice. When you were growing up, was your family into wrestling? Or was it just you? Were you into wrestling at all?
Oh, Lord, my family was into wrestling. I used to wrestle all the time with my uncles, cousins, brothers, and sisters. I mean, it was just, we wrestled all the time. My mom was all the time just getting on to me for wrestling in the floor, wasn't you?
Who were some of your favorite wrestlers growing up?
I guess if I had to pick one that stood out to me, I liked the Rock in the late 90s. He was one of my favorite characters. I liked him, and of course everybody growing up liked Stone Cold Steve Austin, so those were my two big ones that I really enjoyed. I like watching them go back and forth. That was some good TV.
Yeah, you can't go wrong with The Rock and Stone Cold.
Absolutely not.
So Jonathan, tell me, how did you get into wrestling? What made you choose the actual business?
How did I get into wrestling? This is always a fun story to tell. I started going to independent promotions down here to watch shows around 2007, and APW was actually one of my first independent shows that I went to as a fan, and I took about a year off from going to shows to take care of some other business, and I noticed that they had a post on a Facebook page a while back saying they wanted anyone who was interested in a tryout as an announcer to contact the company, and I thought that was a good avenue to kind of get in and give it a shot. So I contacted the promoter at the time, who was still promoter now, Jeremy Vane. Contacted him, told him I was interested, and I started on their biggest show of the year, Freedom Fight, and then it was just, that's pretty much how I got started.
Interesting. So, what made you particularly choose announcing, or did you have plans for that?
Well, I'm not a wrestler. I don't have any interest in being a wrestler. I mean, I've been in matches, of course, I've competed, but strictly as a character, not as an athlete. So whenever I felt like announcing was a good avenue for me, because I love talking to people. I'm a people person, so I always had respect for ring announcers and announcers in the business, because it was their job to kind of paint the picture as far as what people were seeing at home. And it was a ring announcer in a show, and you've been to these shows, a ring announcer is the first person that people see, and they're, in some cases, the last person they see, so I just felt like it was a good fit for me.
If I don't recall, you mentioned you've had a few matches here and there, gimmick matches, I guess you could say. One in particular was against APW owner Jeremy Vane in Royston. Tell me a little bit about that.
That was fun. That was literally one of those things, or one of those matches that was last minute decision. It was just something that we had toyed around with the idea of doing, and it was basically a one night angle between me and the owner, and it just culminated in a main event match, and I got to win. So there you go. It was fun. First time I ever received a chop, which you've received chops before in training. I've seen you receive chops, so you know how those feel.
Yeah. Not too fond of those.
They hurt, definitely.
So there you go. You had your wrestling match, Jonathan Feltner 1-0. No.
Well, not 1-0. I'm actually 1-3. If you want to be.
Oh, wow.
Truthful about it, I've lost 3 other ones since then, so I've got a losing record, which I'm supposed to have a losing record. I'm not supposed to be undefeated, so it works out well.
You can't go wrong with that. I mean, as long as you're entertaining the fans, giving them what they want, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I was at a APW show a couple of months ago. I believe you were there. We saw a tease between you and Jeremy Vane of possibly doing another match between you two. What are your thoughts on that? Or was it just a little skit?
Well, I mean, the thing you got to understand about wrestling is that not everything is going to lead into something. Wrestling, a lot of times, is improv. It's just things that you do, things that you feel, something that you think is going to it's a segue, basically. It's just something into something else. It's a means to an end. And I don't think that's going to lead into any kind of a match. I'm taking some adequate time off, so I don't think you'll be seeing me and Jeremy Vane lock it up anytime soon. That was just one of the things where it was just wrestling. It was just, it was part of the show. It's just how things are sometimes in the business.
Well, it's definitely interesting nonetheless. But, I heard you mention the APW is basically where you got your start in the business pretty much. You've been working there for a number of years. What's it like working down there?
It's different. It's always different whenever you work for the place where you started. You kind of feel that sense of home. And it will always be a place that I consider my home as far as wrestling promotions. I mean, APW has a lot of sentimental value to me. There's a lot of things that happen at that promotion that go way beyond wrestling. I mean, that's where I met my wife. I actually proposed to my wife in APW's ring back in 2012, I believe. 2012, maybe 2011. Trying to remember. She's probably listening. But yeah, so APW's got a lot of sentimental value to me. So that being said, it's a different kind of a feeling.
Any favorite moments or memories you have there with any of the guys?
Any of the guys?
Workers?
Those fond memories and moments from being involved in that place. I've had a lot of good times over the years. Sometimes not so much, but I really couldn't pick one moment in particular with any talent that I would say is my favorite, but I have a lot of good memories, a lot of good times.
You wouldn't even consider bringing up your roasts, especially on me every Friday night?
You know you love those things.
I know, they're hilarious.
Roast is it's a rite of passage. It's just something that everybody does. It's a rib, and it's just a way. It's kind of an initiation, so to speak. I mean, it's all in good fun. I would never say anything actually detrimental to somebody. But it's fun. It's everybody does it. I've had it done to me numerous times, so it's just. And you will get to that point too, Mr. Justin, where you will get to do that to somebody else, and then you'll pass the torch. That's how it works.
It kind of sucks for me, though, that I came into APW as you were getting ready to leave,
Well, it's just, and you'll understand this one day, and I didn't I don't think that I was fully prepared for how drastic my life was going to change when my son was born. But it does change your life. It changes your perspective on things. And am I going to be out of wrestling for the rest of my life? No, because I mean, wrestling is something that's near and dear to my heart. It's in my blood. It'll always be in my blood. But right now, it's just time for me to focus on my son and my family and take care of some things. But I'll be back. But just right now, in the foreseeable future, it's time for me to take a break.
Moving on from that, let's talk about the place where I first met you, Grovetown, Georgia, Flatline Pro Wrestling. What was it like working for them?
Flatline was fun. I really enjoyed working for Flatline. I enjoyed the crew. I enjoyed the atmosphere. And the drives to Grovetown once a month were fun. I mean, Flatline was a fun time, and I honestly believe that Flatline was cut down in its prime. I think that Flatline had a lot more to offer its fan base, but things happen, and I think fans understand that as well as talent understands that. But Flatline will definitely be one of the jewels in my career, getting to work for that company. I think they had a solid product, and they had a different product, but I really enjoyed working for them. Good people.
Any favorite moments or memories from there that come to your mind?
Probably my favorite moment from there, if I have to pick out a favorite moment, it was announcing that final cage match at the last event between Hexen and Boykins. That was fun. That atmosphere, being inside that steel cage and announcing on a grand scale like March of Champions always was, and being in front of that kind of a crowd, and that feeling that there was a lot of emotion because it was the last event for Flatline. So I really enjoyed that. If I had to pick one moment that really stood out in my mind, that would be the moment. Most definitely.
Yeah, that was March Champions was emotional for a lot of people, especially me, because I've been with Flatline since they first started in 2012, and after the show, there were a lot of emotions let out in the cage afterwards. You know.
Yeah, I remember that very vividly. There was it was mixed feelings, but I'll always believe that Flatline was cut down in its prime and it had a lot more to offer. But things happen, and at the end of the day, people have lives and families, and you got to respect that.
Do you ever think we could possibly see Flatline return? And if they did, would you be open for coming back?
Oh, I'd always be open for working Flatline again. I mean, that's not a question. If they would have me, I'd work for them again. There's no, that's a given. But as far as ever seeing a return of Flatline, that's just something that you never really know. I mean, if you're in wrestling and you've been in wrestling in any amount of time, you're always going to have that itch, that want to do something and that want to be involved. And as far as the powers that be with Flatline are concerned, you never know what people are going through, but there's always a chance. I mean, especially in this business, I mean, I know you've heard it on a mainstream scale, but even on the independent level, you never say never. So I'm never going to say that Flatline won't come back, but there's always a possibility. You never know.
Ever since Flatline closed its doors in March of last year, besides APW, what are some other promotions you've been working for?
Oh, Lord. I worked for PWX in Charlotte, North Carolina. I worked for Aggression Pro Wrestling in Lenoir. I've worked, let's see, where else have I worked? APCW in Douglasville. I worked for While We Wrestle in Cornelia. I've worked for OSWA in Cornelia. A few popcorn shows. You know, I worked some fair shows. Just, you know, pretty much I've gotten some of my bookings by word of mouth, people that want me to come and work for their shows. So I've not exactly been without work. I've always been fortunate enough to stay busy.
What's it like for you working and traveling to all these different promotions?
It's fun. it's what paying your dues in this business is all about. You know, it's running the roads, and sometimes I'll get the privilege to travel with some of the guys, and the ones that have been in it longer than me, I get to kind of pick their brains a little bit. You know, probably one of my favorite travel partners is Brett Wolverton, who is a very good announcer buddy of mine. If there's one guy that I've learned from the most, it would be him. So just running the roads and getting to see new places and work with new talent, that's fun. I mean, traveling in the business is what it's really all about. I mean, that's where you get your experience and cut your teeth. Is whenever you get out there and you take a chance on trying to get your name out there and working with different people. That's really fun.
What's the best promotion you've ever worked for, in your opinion?
In my opinion, the best promotion that I've ever worked for. Well, I could honestly say that as far as production, as far as storytelling, as far as talent, as far as management, the whole shebang, from a creative standpoint, from a workhorse standpoint, I'm going to have to say Anarchy Wrestling. I got to work with them for 3.5 years, and they done it right. They had probably one of the best creative teams in the South. I think Bill Behrens is a genius. Todd Sexton was a genius. Franklin Dove was an awesome owner. Charles Anschutz was an awesome owner. I forgot to tell you, Southern Fried Championship Wrestling, I worked for them too. I don't know how I forgot them. But, yeah, I'd have to say my favorite is probably Anarchy, hands down.
Interesting. I never actually got to make it to any Anarchy shows, but I heard they've had some impressive things happen down there.
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
All right, Jonathan, we've talked about announcing, we've talked about you wrestling, but what we haven't talked about is you managing. If I recall right, you were the manager of a faction in the OSWA. Tell me a little bit about that.
That was fun. That was very fun. I got to manage, I got to be a bad guy, which is, if you ask anybody, being a bad guy is a whole lot more fun than being a good guy. So that was good times. I like heckling the crowd. I like getting rises out of people. Well, you know I can be a smart mouth. I mean, you better than anybody know that. So
yeah.
That's why being a bad guy just kind of comes natural.
I was saying, I understand what it's like being a heel or the bad guy, because I've had experience working as heels, especially in UCW, and right now they got a feud going with myself and the Masked Superstar.
Okay.
The crowd hates me down there, so.
Well, I hate you too, so that's alright. Good.
You know you can't hate me.
Nah, you're alright. You just do something about that haircut, we'll be alright.
Yeah, I've been needing to get one. You mentioned Southern Fried Championship Wrestling. If I don't recall, you had some kind of singing competition there, or karaoke lip sync.
We had a lip sync competition. That was fun. That was at last year's Shindig show, which is their biggest show of the year. You know, every promotion has their WrestleMania, so to speak. That was theirs, and that was fun. Had a good time.
I heard you're pretty good at lip syncing. You should try to get on Lip Sync Battle.
Yeah. That's what happens when you drive a lot of hours in a car and you get bored.
You never know, you might come home with a championship belt. Would you ever consider managing as a full-time gig, or would you rather stick to announcing?
Honestly, I like doing both. It keeps things fresh. You don't get just bored and stagnant doing one thing. I like being able to do both. It's fun. I got started in June of 2011, so I guess you could say pretty much I was in it for 5.5 years before I'm taking my break now. So 5.5 total right now.
you're damn sure good at it. You know, you're probably one of the, if not the best announcers I've ever seen, minus the fact that you won Georgia Wrestling Award for Announcer of the Year 3 years in a row. And while I'm at it, I want to congratulate you on winning your third award last week. Congratulations on that.
I appreciate that. I think the Russians had something to do with that. I think they hacked our voting system.
I hope I don't get in trouble for saying this, but I actually nominated you for that award. Yeah.
Oh, you nominated me for that. Well,
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
I mean, like I said, you're probably the, if not the best ring announcers I've seen, especially in this area.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. It's one of those things where when I started, I didn't think that I would get to the level that I'm at. I've always been able to, keep things in perspective and stay humble, because I know that without other people coaching me and telling me, not necessarily telling me what to do, but giving me pointers on how to do it and do it the right way. I've been blessed to have a lot of good teachers, so I give them a lot of credit. But I'm just very blessed that I've been able to do what I've been able to do. It's been a good time.
You said you're trying to stay humble. You better watch out now. You don't want to steal that from Anthony Henry.
Yeah, well, it'll be all right. I think everybody's view of humble is different.
I think Henry's on his way to getting that trademark, though.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it'll be all right. Henry's a good guy.
Well, it's nearing the end of the show here, Jonathan, but before we go, I understand that you've decided, to take this year off from wrestling to pursue other ventures, including going into the ministry, being a new dad, and I want to congratulate you on that as well. But tell us a little bit about, what you're trying to do, plan on doing while you're taking time off.
Well, my wife and I recently joined a new church over in South Carolina, and they've got me working in actually a music capacity. I play bass for them, and they're wanting me to help in student ministries. That's going to take a lot of time. I'm not going to be able to travel as much and do as much for wrestling. So, and plus, I don't want to miss the important years. My little boy being young, babies are only young one time. So I want to enjoy that. And plus, wrestling will always be there. I mean, I've been told on more than one occasion that if I want to come back, all I got to do is ask. And I probably will eventually. But right now, it's just time for me to focus on my family and some other things that I've not been able to take care of. That's pretty much my main goal.
Well, I feel I'm speaking for everyone here when I say we're going to miss you. I mean, it may just be for a year or so, but it's still not going to be the same without you, and I wish you the best in all your future endeavors.
The future endeavors line. Oh, yes. The future endeavors line. The corniest line in all of business. Your future endeavors.
I didn't mean to sound like I was firing you or anything.
Well, fire nobody. You can't fire me. I don't hardly get paid. Man, I don't get paid. Come on, Justin.
Alright, Jonathan, I've got 2 more questions for you, and I'll let you go. The first being, if you ever have the chance to announce for the big leagues, who would be the number 1 guy or girl you'd like to announce to the ring?
The Undertaker. Hands down, number 1. I mark out for that entrance every time. I would love nothing more to stand in the middle of the ring and just ring announce the dead man one time. I'd probably die and just go straight to heaven then. It'd be awesome.
Last but not least, Jonathan, we all know you're leaving for a little while, but in your absence, in your opinion, who would be the best fit, if anybody, to be your replacement?
Be my replacement? Well, that's the funny thing about ring announcers, Justin. we're all different. Everybody's got their own different style. It just, you really can't, a ring announcer really can't be replaced. I mean, it's not like a wrestler. I mean, you can always replace somebody, but ring announcers are their own thing. You should have your own style. So it's not really something that can be replaced, I don't think. But I'm not saying that to sound conceited, because there's a bunch of announcers that are more than capable of stepping up and taking that Georgia announcer title. I mean, Beach State Wrestling Alliance, they've got a good announcer, Jason Boyd. He's really good. OSWA's got a good announcer, Michael Gentry. And whomever APW finds, I mean, they've always had a good track record of finding good announcers. I'm hoping that they'll find somebody in this year to step in there and kind of take that spot while I'm gone. But I mean, I don't know of anybody that can replace me. I mean, I'm not saying that, like I said, to be conceited, but a ring announcer you really don't replace. You just find somebody with their own style that works. That's pretty much how that goes.
There's one name that I want to bring up, if you don't mind. He's a very underrated in the announcing game. What's your opinion on Lionel Howard?
Lionel Howard? How did I know you was going to say that? Lionel Howard's a good guy. He really is. And I think that whenever I came on to Flatline, you know, sometimes competition brings the best out of people. And I think in his case, competition helped him, because if you don't have somebody to compete with, then you have no reason to strive to try to get better. And I think me being there kind of helped bring the best out in him, because I watched him over the course of 2 years. I watched him progress and get better. And even that last Flatline show that I listened to him bringing out some matches, the difference from the first time that I ever heard him ring announce to that time, he progressed and got better leaps and bounds. So I think that he's a good ring announcer. He's a good guy. And I think that if he keeps it up, and actually if he stays busy and he keeps fresh and he keeps ring announcing, I think he'll do great. I think Jason is his main name, but Lionel, I think he's got a lot of potential. And he can be good. I think he can do very well. And if I'm not mistaken, isn't he ring announcing for VPW and Thompson, Bauer Pro Wrestling?
He is. He's doing a pretty good job too.
Well, yeah, I think a lot of Lionel Howard. I think he's very good at what he does, and he can only get better. I think he'll do just fine.
All right, well, we've reached the end of the show here, Jonathan, but I want to thank you for being here and taking the time to sit down with me. And before we go, I want to say, it's been a pleasure, knowing you and working with you in the business. And it's not gonna be the same while you're gone, but we'll be waiting for you when you come back.
I'll be back. I'm taking time off. I'm not dying, so I mean, you ain't gotta fly with the funeral flowers. I'm going to go be an adult for a while. But the business will be here when I get back. But in the meantime, Justin, please, for the love of God, do something with your hair.
I'll try my best. But Jonathan,
Alrighty, man.
I want to thank you for being here, and it's been a pleasure having you. And ladies and gentlemen, this has been The Spotlight with Justin Hollywood and my guest, Jonathan Feltner. And we'll see you later on in another edition of The Spotlight. Thank you. Good night.
This has been a WWAX production.